I'll summarize you the lesson, the last lesson. The last lesson, it's written by Alphonse Daudet. He was a French novelist, short story writer. Children, this lesson tells us about the patriotism, freedom of language, and the love for one's mother tongue. The French districts of Alsace and Lorraine, it went into Prussian hands. When the new Prussian rulers they entered to the districts of Alsace and Lorraine, they tried not to continue the teaching of French in the schools. The French teachers were asked to leave the school, and now M. Hamel, the French teacher, is no longer, he cannot stay there. But still, he gave a lesson to all his students with utmost devotion and sincerity. And he explains the importance of language in one's life. So, the story deals with the theme of language imposition and language loyalty. It highlights the pain that is inflicted on the people of a territory by its conquerors by taking away the right to study or to speak their own language. Franz started for school very late that morning. He was afraid. He was afraid of being scolded. Why? Because M. Himmel, his teacher, he was supposed to question them on participles, and he did not know the first word even. So he unwillingly reached the school. Through the window, he saw his classmates already on their places. They were sitting in their places. And M. Hemmel was walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler. The iron ruler on that particular day was under his arm. He opened the door and he went in. He blushed and was frightened. The teacher very kindly asked him to go to his place. Franz actually noticed that his teacher had put on his best clothes. The village people were sitting quietly. Normally, the last bench was normally empty, but that particular day, they were there. They had come to thank the master for his 40 years of faithful service and to show their respect for the country. That was theirs no more. Everybody looked sad. Hauser had brought an old primer. He was a former mayor, and primer means a book on language, basic book of language. Am Himmel said it, then he further said that it was the last lesson and he would give them. Henceforth, only German was to be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master would be there to teach them, and this was their last lesson of French. He wanted them to be very attentive. Franz felt sorry that he had not learnt his lessons properly. The idea that Hemmel was going away made the narrator forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. And Hemmel asked Franz to recite, but he stood there silent. The teacher did not scold him. He confessed that his parents and he himself means the teacher, were at fault. Then he talked of the French language, the beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical. He asked them to guard it among them and never forget it. He says that their language was the key to their prison. Then they had lesson in grammar and writing. After the writing, they had chanted their ba, bi, bu, Bew. Even old church clock struck 12, and then the midday prayers. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under the windows. Hamel stood up. He wanted to speak, but something choked him. Then he took a piece of chalk and wrote on the blackboard as large as he could, Vive la France, means long lived France. After this, he stopped and leaned his head against the wall without a word. He made a gesture with his hand to indicate that the school was dismissed and they might go. Actually, children, the background of this lesson is it is said that during the Franco Prussian War, which took place in 1870, France was defeated by Persia, led by Otto von Bismarck. So the French districts of Alsace and Lorraine were occupied by Germany. In this lesson, the narrator is young boy named Franz, and he talks about his last lesson of French language at school. German forces they had instructed that German will be taught in school. So I'll again brief you some of the important points. He, Franz, actually, he thought of spending the day out. Why? Because it was warm, bright, and sunny. Franz was always interested in going out, playing, watching the birds, chirping on the trees, and the Prussian soldiers drilling out. He felt all this more tempting than studying in the class. He resisted the thought and that particular day and he hurried on his way. The next point, which is very important, is the bulletin board. About the bulletin board, actually, whatever the news that has to be conveyed, it is laid out on that bulletin board, and that particular day it was crowded, which means that there is some news. So he was wondering what the news could be, but he rushed to the school. The next thing which is important is the scene at the school. The scene at the school was unusual. Every morning there is a great bustle. So there is a lot of sound which can be heard. There is a sound of the desks which are to be moved. The classroom is being set. All the students can be heard repeating the lessons. But on that particular day, there was no sound. It is very silent as if it is on a Sunday morning. So he was confused that what was the matter, and there were many. Normally, the last bench was remains vacant. The last bench remains vacant, but on that particular day, everybody was sitting on the last bench. Another thing which is to be remembered is on that particular day, his teacher is dressed in his best attire. He's wearing a beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, little black silk cap, and all of them were embroidered. Normally, this dress was worn by the teacher only on special occasions, so he was a little bit surprised. Further, his teacher told him that it was the last lesson. So, children, here one thing which is very important is the contrast. What was the contrast? Earlier, Franz was afraid of his teacher's scoldings, but that particular day he's sad. He was sad. Why he was sad? Because he won't be able to meet him again. The villagers they have come to pay respect to the teacher, and then when the teacher started teaching them, he was amazed that at once he understood everything. Franz, he was wondering that whether the German soldiers would ask pigeon to coo in their German language. The only sound which could be heard in the class was of the pen striking the paper because everyone was writing seriously, other than the sound of pigeons going on the roof of the classroom. Franz was wondering whether the German soldiers would ask pigeon to coo in their German language. This can come as a short question answer time. The German actually they were forcing to learn their language, and the teacher was very much depressed. So he bade uh, them goodbye and he gives a gesture to the class that the school is dismissed and they may leave. He gathers all the strength, the teacher gathers all his strength and writes on the board, Vive la France means long live France. I hope you have understood.